And after seeing that, we have a lot to talk about. Former Texan Seth Payne is here. Author, speaker, former Texan J.J. Moses is here, along with Zach Tawatari. Guys, what do you think about this side over here?
You know what? You guys, you could have had me stand back a little bit or something. JJ's not as short as he appears on it.
Some perception.
I get down on a knee, but he's got a better hairline than I do. I don't want anybody. There we go. We'll go like
that
this.
looks good.
I
can promise you.
Okay,
everybody
let's
get
do
on
it.
your knees. Come on, Zach. This is what it feels like to be 5'6".
He's got a nice hair, actually.
All right, so anyways, emoji time, Seth. We've got the camera here now. You look what you've done.
You got it. Let's go.
All right, emoji time, Seth.
You guys always accuse me of being delusional after a victory. 3 times out of 8, yes, I'll be delusional. That was 7. 3 out of that. 3 and 4 right now. They've had 3 really good performances offensively. They just got to figure out a way to do it more consistently. I'm happy with this win.
Let's go. Okay, I'm in the situation. Did it surprise everybody that the Texans controlled time of possession? I'm like, yikes.
Yes.
This is so surprising. What I'm going to do is 6-7. You know, it's this new little phrase that they got, 6-7. Everything's 6-7. But I do believe this. They're off to a good start, and I'm glad that this team was able to prevail and get this big win. Let's go.
All right,
You
now
guys
Zach.
are like rushing the quarterback, like making like cuts and stuff on the way to the board. Speaking of rushing the quarterback, C.J. Stroud not sacked today, which is great, but why am I still not convinced that this Texans offense is for real? Maybe it's because they're playing a very banged-up 49ers defense. I'm still like, I'm not sure.
All right, well, before we get to me, let's now go to Luis Ortiz, who is covering the game at NRG. Luis, where are you on the board?
Yeah, guys, my emoji is the one that you see, and it's like this, kind of looking up, wondering, curious about where has this Texans team been all season long, specifically the offense, with having probably its best performance of the year so far. So there's a lot to wonder about. Can the Texans, contain this, sustain this rather? Can they be consistent with this type of game? And also, it just makes you wonder which Texans team is going to show up every week.
All right, thanks so much, Luis. So
Got
many
a bunch of Aristotles in here.
We do. Yeah. So many choices. This was the first time CJ had not been sacked in a game since October of 2023. So I think you have to feel good about that. Again, I'm not. It was a depleted Niners team, but still, I think I'm going to go here. So that's what we're saying. Now, here's what the Texans are saying. So let's go back to this idea of Nick Caley doing a great job. Is he really doing a great job again?
I think it's a little bit like when if you're getting knee surgery, you don't want to be the doctor's first patient ever. Maybe he goes on to be one of these world-renowned orthopedists or something, but I don't want to be the first guy. So that's where I'm kind of judging Caley on a scale of, all right, how is he figuring out what tools he has available to him? How is he addressing the weaknesses? One thing that I did like today was Blake Fisher got the most snaps at tight end that he's had all year. So you have 6 offensive linemen out there. It's not ideal because that means you've got 1 fewer receiver out on routes. The problem is you could have 7 receivers out there at times, but if C.J. Stroud doesn't have time to throw the ball, he can't find them. You put an extra big body in there, you can run the ball more effectively, set up the play action, and then sure, CJ might have 1 fewer option, but CJ can find that option if he has the time.
Well, I think, first of all, if Nick Caley wouldn't have won today's game, they would have ran Nick Caley out of Houston, Texas.
That might be a good indicator of how good a job he's doing.
But I'm grateful. I can tell this. You can tell by this week's play that guys had more space on the football field. They were spacing guys out. They were utilizing guys more in the motion in terms of the offensive side, which gave guys like a Higgins and Noel, of course, to make those exceptional plays. And I think that's where Caley is going to have to continue to make those exceptional plays and adjust to the play calls to make sure he's putting those guys in the proper spaces so they can make those plays.
Listen, I'm in a situation where I think that Nick Caley did a good job in this game. But at one point, Zach, in this season, the Texans were on pace to have one of the worst offenses of this quarter century. So I'm sorry, D'Amico probably has forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But to say he has done a great job, that just doesn't really sit well with me.
That's the part that was hard for me to hear today when we heard D'Amico speak postgame, because It's one thing to say he did a great job today. The Texans' offense looked better, which we think it did. I love the fact that they went to a lot of those shorter passes. CJ finally had some time. It was like, wow, this is incredible to watch CJ be able to operate this offense with just a little bit of time. But to say that he's been doing a great job, I mean,
I guess that's the hard part, though. Like, if we got up, if D'Amico got up, let's think about the opposite. If D'Amico got up there and said, boy, you know what, Nick Caley finally showed up today. Frankly, I've had my doubts myself. What do you guys think? This is what comes with a losing record. Yeah. We get hypersensitive about every little thing.
But we also know that he would never take our opinion because he made that clear that he's not going to listen.
Made that very clear.
He's not going to listen to the outside noise.
That's right. And you saw how when Coach D'Amico Ryans, when they won that game during the locker room, post-show talk, he gave that sigh of relief saying, oh, this was a big win. So he even felt the pressure for the guys and the team to go out and perform today.
It's tough. And John Harris and us were talking about it on our pregame show. It doesn't seem like D'Amico should be an old school player necessarily because he's still pretty young. There's a big gap between guys like us that played before social media and now the world these guys live in, where you can try to tell guys to ignore the outside noise. It's very hard to ignore it because it's there everywhere. People are doing all 22 breakdowns. There's PFF scores. And I think it's a constant battle for coaches to try to figure out, how do I insulate my players from all of this as much as I can, knowing that they're still being subjected to it out there.
So what was the most impressive aspect of this game?
For me, it was CJ afforded more time in the pocket, but also when it wasn't perfect, he looked back more like that calm, cool, and collected guy that could navigate. He was finding his checkdowns on time and in rhythm, and I think it's a subtle distinction, but you hold on to it just for a beat too long when there's pressure, and then that's when all of a sudden it's a lot harder to make the throw to Woody Marks, or it's a lot harder to find the wide open guy underneath. I think he's more comfortable taking the shorter gains and understanding those can turn into larger gains. Like it was with Woody Marks today. That was a relatively boring pass that ended up being a pretty exciting play.
Yeah, and I was surprised, to be honest with you. This is the first time that C.J. Stroud has threw over 300 yards since 2024 when they beat the Buffalo Bills. And so this is what C.J. is going to have to continue to do, is make those big-time plays. And also, he only had one interception, and that one interception was in the first half. So that didn't really count.
And it was a last-ditch effort anyway. Yeah.
And so that's the poise. And he all did this without his number one target, Nico Collins. So when you can put those stats up with these rookie wide receivers, that's impressive for C.J. Stroud.
I actually think the most impressive aspect of this game was the defense, because on the broadcast you kept hearing Moose Johnston saying, boy, it's just shocking to me that we don't even know what Kyle Shanahan is supposed to be calling because he hasn't been able to call anything because the Texans defense was locked in. Now, granted, the way the defense has played for most of the season, its reputation, not surprised by that. But I thought that was actually the most impressive portion of this game was the Texans defense.
I like the way that they bounced back from seemingly negative plays today.
Yeah.
They took their medicine in some ways, and as Seth was saying, CJ was taking these checkdowns. They were, still running the ball in those situations, getting 3 or 4 yards as opposed to just stalling out, and that put them in a lot more favorable situations on third down, and we finally got to see them sustain some drives, and they held on to the ball for a very long time today.
And I'm glad you mentioned the defense because I'm guilty of this. The expectations of the defense are so high that it's kind of like a kid that always gets A's in the family. You kind of forget about it, but then the C student gets a B, and you're like, oh, put it on the refrigerator. Yeah. And that's what I did with the Texans offense today. I stuck their B on the refrigerator.
Boom.
All right. Well, since we have an Iowa State guy here,
right.
Jalen Noel, what?
I got excited about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody's talking about State.
Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, do they now deserve a similar amount of touches or targets when Nico comes back?
And Jason, we cannot also forget Xavier Hutchinson, who's also another receiver. So I think when Nico Collins comes back, you have to continue to feed these up-and-coming wide receivers. One thing that I love about our Iowa State guys, of course, I might be a little biased, but Matt Campbell from Iowa State has done a great job of acclimating these guys. Once they got into the pros, they immediately was going to adjust right away. And so I'm not surprised to see the emergence of Higgins, Hutchinson, and overall Noel making those big plays, but I think they got to continue to target those those guys because right now they're gaining momentum and confidence as young players.
And the headline writers get so excited. So many cyclone puns coming our way this week. Cyclonic, all that. Yeah, it was a cyclonic effort.
Cyclones. Yeah. And also, Nick Caley was also from Iowa State. Did you know that?
Well,
offensive coordinator back in his day.
Yeah.
So, hey.
I mean, he's the star of the show right now.
Yeah. I think, with Jalen Noel, you can see that explosiveness, that potential, everything that's there. And he's a little bit of a rhythm changer, where Jaden Higgins is very similar in a lot of respects, physically, size-wise, and everything to Nico Collins. I hate to make the comparison to Tank Dell, but that's the closest comparison Jalen Noel is to Tank Dell, where he can offset and complement some of Nico's skills in a way that, Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins, there's a little bit of redundancy. Not that you can't use both of them. It's just Jalen Noel, it's exciting to think about the possibilities.
Christian Kirk better make sure that he's getting healthy real soon because he's starting to see the emergence of these young guys. You want to make sure you're going to have a job real soon.
Well, and then, in Braxton Berrios, we saw his production early on, but that grittiness and that run after catch to get that first down that he did early in the game, it was just a great effort of spreading it around all over the place.
Yeah, it was. I mean, no notes. What else can I say? I mean,
I didn't break it down a play today, so we're just we're talking a lot.
What's interesting to me about the kind of, style that they were running today is it reminds me a lot of when CJ did start to have success early on with Tank, where they were having these short underneath routes that were opening up the bigger plays. And I think we got to see that on full display today. And if you remember towards the beginning of last season, they were talking about how they want to take the top off the defense. They want to be able to go deep. And honestly, as soon as they started to get away from that formula that was helping them succeed, they kind of started to sputter out offensively, and now maybe they're getting back to that idea of it again.
Well, now it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Right, now it's a different coordinator, I get it. But,
but it is, there's got to be some substance to when you take those shots. And when you're committed to running the ball, and if CJ is willing to take the easy money on first and second down, the big play opportunities come. So it's if you just want big plays all the time, it's like drinking energy drinks. It'll work in 2023, but by 2024, you're going to be exhausted. You need to add some legumes or something to your diet. That's what these runs are, legumes that help you sustain the energy drinks later on.
So now the big question is, can this momentum be sustained against a very impressive Denver Broncos team?
I looked at him for help. Look, in the defense I trust. They are our A student right now. And Bo Nix in that Broncos offense did some really impressive things today, and they have. But he's also had some games where he doesn't show up until the fourth quarter, or when they went over and played in London, the Broncos offense wasn't impressive at all. So it's really going to have to be with a hefty dose of that defense yet again.
And I love this example, but it's true. With C.J. Stroud, he has to continue to gain this knowledge because knowledge is what's going to give him confidence, and confidence is overall what's going to give C.J. the ability to continue to win. So I think, Jason, to answer that question, C.J. needs to continue just to stay focused and have that knowledge to help him to continue to persevere.
Well, let me just add one piece to that. I think, yes, knowledge is power, but so is having a stable and productive offensive line. Yeah. So I think that is certainly,
they're the legumes.
It's certainly a step in the right direction, but here's the thing that we've seen about this team. They have not been able to handle teams that are the Titans or teams that are banged up due to injuries. And I know it's a small sample size, but at this point, I don't think you can have that much confidence in this team based on what we've seen through the first 7 games.
Well, according to what these guys have been talking about post-game and throughout the week, it's about focus, right? They keep saying, when we show up focused, we play well. When we don't, we don't. That sounds elementary, but it makes me think that they believe there's an idea that it's more than physical.
There needs to be a focus check.
There has to be a focus check.
I like that word, focus, Jason. I like this.
Somebody wrote a book.
Focus. Focus to prepare to win mindset.
That's right.
I like that. Seth doesn't even know who.
I know it's your book. I know it's your book. I was waiting for the acronym. No, I think that this is the problem too. I think sometimes there's a little bit of hindsight in that after you have a great game versus a team like the Ravens that doesn't have a good pass rush, you think back and you're like, yeah, we were focused today. It's sometimes you just go out and get beat up, no matter how focused you are. And afterwards, it's a little easier to say, like, well, maybe if I were more focused, And so if I go, if JJ goes and fights a heavyweight boxer or something, all the focus in the world is, I'm sorry, JJ, but I'm in a good heavyweight boxer. Weight classes exist for a reason, and sometimes it does feel like the Texans' offensive line is fighting up 2 or 3 weight classes.
All right. Well, he is Seth Payne from Sports Radio 610, the former Texan.
To be clear, a welterweight would kick my butt, an actual boxer.
No, I got you.
Anybody on the street, don't try it. But an actual boxer.
We'll take that, yeah. And then you have author, speaker, and just all-around good guy, former Texan JJ Moses. Guys, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Sports Extra.
We got to work out today. JJ and I are just hyped up. We're sweating.
He's sweating. Let me just fan him down. Let's go.